Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Pele Yoetz. We're on the letter Aleph. Today we're going to be talking about Eretz Yisrael, and this is a very hot button topic. A lot of people are always asking the Rebbeinu, is it time to move to Eretz Yisrael? And of course, that answer seems to vacillate. It never is really the same, and it's not the same for everyone. And we all know it's a mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael. It's a mitzvah. But for some people, they try with all the best intentions to move to Eretz Yisrael, only to find that it almost seems as their dreams are shattered. Sometimes it's very difficult to live in Eretz Yisrael. And, so one is left asking, why did I do all this? So, we're going to see what Rabbi Papo Alav Shalom is going to say about it. I think it's really a topic of interest for everyone. So, and it states that the land of Israel, the precious one of Israel, it is well known that its virtue is extraordinary, as described in Zohar HaKadosh in section 3, page 72b, and in the other holy books. The individual that is chosen by God will be brought near unto it to see its pleasantness of God and to visit in his sanctuary. Eretz Yisrael it's a living land. It literally is a living land. It draws people in and it spits them out. So very interesting. It says, every person's eyes and heart should be directed unto it all his days. This idea is expressed in the verse of Tehillim 42:3. My soul thirsts for the Lord, the living God. When shall I come and appear before the Lord? Therefore, a person should strive with all his strength to establish his dwelling in the land of Eretz Yisrael. So, no matter where you are, well-known concept in Judaism, like as the famous saying goes, if I forget thee, O Yerushalayim. So, your heart should always be directed towards Eretz Yisrael. And especially, when you're davening, you should always be facing towards that direction. It says, however, he must open his eyes first to examine closely the idea so that he should not come to regret his earlier decision and be forced to leave. So this is that thing we were talking about where some people, they want really wholeheartedly and genuinely to move to Eretz Yisrael, but they get there and they find it such a hardship and they end up, really regretting their decision, Has v'shalom, to move to Eretz Yisrael. So continue on. It says, it is recommended that he not go there until his older years, when his wife is no longer experiences menses and will not give birth. He should not bring with him sons or daughters. If God granted him wealth, then he may bring with him a daughter who will eventually leave him, but a son should not take he should not take it all. For then there will be more children, and and one does not know what each day will bring. So this is this is really talking about I think a lot of people, they move to Eretz Yisrael, but oftentimes you find that they end up coming back, at least here in the United States, they come back really fundraising or whatever have you, because it's very difficult life. So it's saying if you got to do it at least when you're retiring. And of course, this is especially true if you have children. Sometimes, if you have children that have been raised in America and then you go to Eretz Yisrael, it's harder, I think, for them to kind of acclimate. And then it becomes everyone is suffering as a result of it. So it's saying that the best time to go is when you are older. So it says, it is true that the air of the land of Israel makes one wise. I think Harav Mizrahi really put this on the map. Even though we've heard this, he really puts it on the map. And he says, even to smell it, you already become smarter. So anyone in Eretz Yisrael, please feel free to bottle up some air and send it over our way. So, however, according to what our eyes see, the attaining of one's daily need is more difficult in the land of Eretz Yisrael. In the majority of cases, people need to leave and grasp a mission related to some mitzvah that takes them out of the country for 10 years or more. So again, we just discussed this about how sometimes people are coming over, at least to America, I'm sure in other parts of the world as well, in order to just gain the parnassah, in order to live there. So it says, a life of pain they endure, and their wives even more so. And again, this is because, now they're leaving, they're traveling. We've already spoken in previous chapters about what a hardship this is to the woman. So it says, so great is the travail of constant travel for both the body and the soul, as it is well known. And I got to tell you, I know that from firsthand experience, and just traveling, from my state all around in my state, that took a hardship on my body. And oftentimes if I got to do a shear outside of my state, that also takes a hardship. Traveling is hard on the body. You get very exhausted. I mean, if you're going even more than 20 miles already, it's an exhausting trip, both there and back. So it says, this is not the case of those who reside in the diaspora. They find ample provisions in their own towns. When an elderly husband and wife immigrate as is fitting, they will be able to have a good retirement there. Even if they experience a life of difficulty, it will still be considered a good life due to the abundance of all the good in their lives. So it says, it's a great mitzvah for the children to make every effort with all of their financial means and soul to provide satisfaction for their father and mother and transport them to the land of Israel. So they're saying that for those children that it's possible to do so, that it's considered a mitzvah for you, it's a great mitzvah for you to help your parents make aliyah and to set them up there. And it says, this honor is greater than thousands of gold and silver coins. So if you're looking to get some zechus, I think we just hit a jackpot here. So it says, likewise, a man should help his brother with great strength and power. If one of them wants to locate his home in the land of Eretz Yisrael, how good and pleasant is the dwelling of brothers together, where one helps the other. For his brother is like his own flesh, as is written in Yeshayahu 58:7. And from your flesh you shall not hide. And it is also well known that the great one who causes others to do a mitzvah. So it says, many are the evils that result from being an officer or a designee of those who are going to Israel. Such a person needs to adjudicate with others for things that have nothing to do with him. Sometimes he needs to allow a person to fall who has suffered financial setback. For what does a person need such trouble? In truth, it is a great mitzvah to help someone moving to Eretz Yisrael, but the wise man anticipates the future, that he should not end up regretting his commitment. All right, so we talked about this already. And again, I had these ideas too. I just want to go to Eretz Yisrael. I just want to go. And then, you stop and you ask the Devorah Esther, like, what job are you going to have? Where are you going to live? You have to be realistic. And so if I would have gotten there, dragged my whole family over there, everyone would have been miserable, would have caused so much machloket in the house. There would be no shalom by it. And then everyone would, has v'shalom, be regretting the decision. So Rav is saying you have to be careful about this. It says, every clever person must act with perspicacity. So it says, if he is able to dismiss himself and there are others, that is good. If not, he must know that which he must do and the path which he must take. He should make conditions such that he is more likely to gain than to lose. Everything that we said applies to a stranger. However, a brother is bone of his bones and flesh of his flesh. Therefore, there is no obligation on his brothers to assist him, and it is impossible for them to just say no. So it says, someone who God has granted financial success should not refrain from assisting those people who are moving to the land of Israel in accord with the extent of God's goodness unto him. So it says, if you have the means, if you're able to do this mitzvot to help people to make aliyah, then certainly this is a place where you should be investing your mitzvot in your money. So it says, whether at the time of their going or by sending them gifts. So it's not just that you send them over there. If you know there's a yeshiva there, it is worthwhile for you to support this yeshiva. This is what they're considering sending gifts. Make sure you're supporting them, because and in turn it helps all of the people that are in the yeshivot, that they're able to stay a little bit easier. And the great thing is that in their learning, a portion of that becomes your learning. So especially if you're the type of person that you have a very busy parnassah, you're in an office and you know yourself, if you know your husbands are not in yeshiva as they should be, then this probably is a place you want to look to invest your money, because this will have a great return as far as mitzvot are concerned. And it says, it will be considered a great mitzvah. In truth, it seems that those people act improperly who go from the city to city and impose on the community support their own moving to Israel. People speak about them saying, who asked them to impose on others so that they might go to Eretz Yisrael? If they do not have the means of their own, they should not go. Behold, there are wealthy men, great rabbis, and outstanding sages whose resting places are in the diaspora. Very true, right? Very true. We have huge tzaddikim that are not they're not in Eretz Yisrael. So it's a very, very controversial, thing. It says, is this mitzvah greater than the mitzvah of lulav or any other the 613 mitzvot? A person who does not have financial means is not obligated and is not required to go begging on others' doorsteps in order to fulfill any mitzvah. So we also talked about this before. We talked about, no man ever comes empty-handed to Hashem, but you cannot give what you don't have. If Hashem is not giving you the means, then there's no obligation for you to go and turn up your world upside down and knocking from door to door, begging for pennies to go move to Eretz Yisrael. So it says, in truth, our sages said in Berachot 6a, the person who thought to do a mitzvah but did not due to the circumstances beyond his control, it's considered as if he did it. So again, this is the beauty of Hashem, that the desire alone makes it as if you had already done it. So for all of us who are dying to live in Eretz Yisrael, it's like we have already done this mitzvah. And I think that's a great consolation to us. So it says, the sages also said in Shabbat 118a, make your Shabbat ordinary and do not require the charity of others. So it says, if one is a diseased individual stricken by God and afflicted, who has endured many evils and troubles, without question going to Israel is a necessity in order for him to alleviate his pain and as a bandage for his wounds. But if not for this, it would seem that those who want to go to Israel act inappropriately, and there's no reason to have pity on them. Again, we talked about this in the opening that, it is true. If somebody asks, should I move to Eretz Yisrael? That question, the answer to that question is it really does vacillate. It depends on everyone's circumstance. And until, Mashiach comes, which I hope will be by the end of this year, it's really a different response to everyone. So, very I can't wait till Mashiach comes. I really can't. I want to go so bad, But moving on, it says, yet, since we see that not many people actually do this, perhaps there's only one from a city whose spirit has been awakened and his soul desires to go. This is a sign that his direction is from Hashem, from Shemaim, and they have designated him. So again, we talked about the land being a living land. If Hashem puts everyone where they're supposed to be, and it is Hashem alone who directs the steps. So for some people, he is directing, and that is the appropriate move. Really, this is the benefit of having a Rav who really can help you and really, decipher that. It says, the legs of a person are his guarantor. They transport him to the place that he is needed. In Sukkah 53a, that's what the site that they're bringing down. It says, therefore, it is proper to support him generously in order that he may perform the will of our Father in Shemaim. So again, when Hashem is the one that's moving you, then of course, right away, you want to support, Hashem's decision, as it were, to send this person to Eretz Yisrael, and this is when it becomes a mitzvah to you. So it says, the halacha decisors in your 251.3 have already written that the concept of the poor of your city take precedence applies to the poor people in the land of Eretz Yisrael, because they indeed are called the poor of your city. So always we should remember about our brothers and sisters in Eretz Yisrael, and we should give generously to them. It says, they live like chickens in a coop. They are not able to earn a living, and there's almost no one who has pity on them. And this is very true. We see this, you have to remember your brothers and sisters in Eretz Yisrael. You just have to, we cannot turn a blind eye to them. So it says, their eyes are uplifted to the inhabitants of the diaspora, whether for letters to inform them of well-being of their relatives, or for financial aid to give life to their souls and to rejoice in their hearts. So sometimes it's giving a word of hizuk. Again, this is not a mitzvah where it's like, oh, okay, I'll just go do it. It's very difficult, and it's it's very very difficult burden. I think it's one thing to uproot your family, move there, and then to have to sustain your life there. And it's not like they are living in these extravagant palaces. It really is. A lot of them are living in really like buildings. The apartments are very small. The families are very big. So it's difficult. It's a difficult living situation. It says, a great act of charity and kindness is done by one who writes them a letter and sends them gifts, whether a lot or a little. Each man according to the gift of his hands, according to God's blessing upon him. So again, he's literally repeating what I just said. No man comes empty-handed. We can only give what Hashem has given you. So that doesn't mean, you give up to half your check. I mean, it's a great and it's worthwhile, to give, but everyone within their means. And it says it will be considered a great mitzvah. It's a good thing that when a man writes a letter to another city, that he writes about all the people who live in his city. For sometimes it could happen that because of this letters, others will know about the well-being of their relatives and will cheer up their hearts of the fortunate, who will receive a bracha from Hashem and from man, and his mitzvah will endure forever. So again, this is that attribute of chesed and just extreme kindness. And you see this playing out where you receive a blessing from Hashem simply by cheering somebody up. So here, really hang on to this attribute. It's very beautiful. And it is true. It's not just Hashem is going to give you the bracha, but the person that you're cheering up, he's also going to bless you. Because not only did you just cheer him up about, just about things that are going on in the neighborhood, but there's a chance that he's going to know, when you say, so-and-so, their daughter finally got married, that could be their relative. And so this is maybe the way that they heard the news. So it says, the primary purpose of going to Israel is for the perfection of the soul. The spirit shall return to God who gave it as he gave it, and the soul will praise God. This is because the sanctity of the place and the respite for the hassles of life is a great help in this regard. As such, a man who merits going there should be holy and devout. It's a big zechus to go to Eretz Yisrael. It's not a small thing. It really isn't a small thing. If you've been chosen to go to Eretz Yisrael, wow, you've hit the lotto. It says, even if God bestows upon him material abundance, he should not delight in sensual pleasures. Rather, a life of pain he should live, and in these ways of penitence, and in all manners of piety he should conduct himself. Someone who is not well versed in these matters must go to a sage that will teach him and guide him in the circles of righteousness, such that the virtue will be the belt of his thighs. He should be one who grows smaller and is good for him. He should take from his body and prepare for his soul. He must be attentive with all of his powers to fulfill the mitzvot of the land with all of his soul and all of his might. For this is the ultimate fruit of living in the land of Eretz Yisrael. The pure sage and the author of Sefer Haredim has already brought together all the mitzvot of the land in the end of the book. Again, you have to get a Rav involved in this, one, just to determine whether this really and truly is the right move for you. But also you should know that, the mitzvot in Eretz Yisrael are not like, the way we do it here. The kedusha that comes out of it is just, you're on another level. So, and the same way, if you fall on averot has v'shalom, the weight of that is also greater than out here in diaspora. So, something to think about. So it says, it is well known that one who sins in the land of Eretz Yisrael is punished, is twice as great as the one who sins in the diaspora. See? So it says, for the former is the palace of God. Therefore, every sensitive soul should have pity on his being, and he should embrace God and his Torah day and night. He should never be silent and should atone for every wrongdoing that he committed all the days of his life. It is the time of graciousness, and he must greatly distance himself from idleness. Accordingly, he must be holy like a Nazarite, and his tremendous personal obligation. So, really, it's a warning. It really is a warning. Double your pleasure, but measure for measure, and the opposite is always, it's a mirror image. Double the punishment. So very serious thing to live in Eretz Yisrael. It says that the general rule is that all the days that are upon the land should be genuinely like Yom Kippur, and Yirat Shemaim should hover over them. Great is the power of prayer in that place, and the land is so desired. There are awesome prayers which they pray on behalf of the inhabitants of diaspora. From their mouths we live. Isn't that beautiful? This is why we should be supporting them. From their mouths, all the prayers that they're praying for all of us out here in the diaspora, we should be giving them, some kind of help. So it says, each one of them should pray for his relatives according to the eloquence of his tongue. It says he should pray for the rebuilding of the Beit HaMikdash, the ingathering of the exiles, and that God, may his name be blessed, should redeem us with complete redemption speedily in our days. Amen. It says, I, the indignant one, have already composed a prayer, which I recorded in Beit Tefiloti, which resides in the land of Israel, must constantly be happy by virtue of his constant fulfillment of that very mitzvah. All of his suffering should be alleviated by his love for the land. All right, so in closing, if you're thinking about moving to Eretz Yisrael, hopefully, it's a well thought out decision. It's one that involves somebody who is very wise and knowledgeable in this. But there's something to keep in mind is that you are literally in Hashem's palace. You're literally in Hashem's palace. It's not the same when you're outside, down the block, down the neighborhood. You have to, first of all, you have to respect the king wherever you are. But now you're in his palace. Now you're in his inner sanctum, as it were. And you cannot disrespect the land of Eretz Yisrael. It is a direct disrespect to Hashem. It's a very serious violation. This is why, when you're blessing the land, you're doing well, and you're speaking words of Torah in the land of Eretz Yisrael. This is a great zechus for it's a great reward. But the opposite is also true. If you go there, you disrespect the land, just have no regard for what Hashem has said, his laws, it's going to be big trouble for you. So really all things to think about, but it's very interesting that, again, the question of, is it time to move to Eretz Yisrael? Again, it just vacillates between person to person, and every situation is different. So something to think about. But if you're not in Eretz Yisrael, the one thing we all should be doing is that our thoughts and our hearts should always be towards the land of Eretz Yisrael. We should always be thinking, not just about the redemption, not just, the fact that Mashiach's coming, but the fact that we miss Yerushalayim. We want to be there. Our neshamas want to be there. And we pray to have the zechus one day to go. So that's it for now. I hope we'll all be together again soon. B'ezrat Hashem.